These are the different definitions of conflict. Conflict is a painful emotional state which results from a tension between opposed and contradictory. A stage of tension brought by the presence in the individual of two or more opposing desires. State of affairs in which two or more incompatible behavior trends are evoked that cannot be satisfied fully at the same time. Conflict is usually a clash of motives. A group of psychologists determined that there are three types of conflict: the approach conflict, the approach avoidance conflict, and the avoidance conflict. So let's talk about the first type of conflict, the approach conflict. The approach conflict is when there's conflict within a person where he or she needs to decide between two appealing goals. The conflict is typically resolved when there's movement towards one of the goals. This makes it easier to make the final decision. For example, during vacation, it's time to plan your family vacation for the year. Not shockingly, the kids are leaning towards the Disney World vacation. You and your spouse are leaning towards the tropical beach vacation in Hawaii. Each option has advantages and disadvantages. It's your job as a parent to make the decision. This falls under approach conflict because you have to decide between two pretty appealing destinations. You begin researching the Disney vacation and see all the fun things the whole family can experience. This leads you to set up a schedule for the entire week. By the time you're ready to move on to researching the beach vacation, you've already got your mind set on the Disney vacation. The decision is made. The next type of conflict is approach avoidance conflict. Approach avoidance conflict occurs when an individual is faced with a decision to pursue or avoid something that has advantages and disadvantages. This form of conflict involves only one goal. The name comes from the advantages of the goal making the person want to approach the goal and the disadvantages making him or her want to avoid it. Finding the equilibrium. So the approach avoidance conflict is known to cause stress. People go back and forth trying to make a decision. So they are trying to find their equilibrium point where they are about to accept both the advantages and the disadvantages, no matter the final decision. As the person nears the goal, they feel a pull from the disadvantaged side. This leads the person to avoid the goal. As the person starts to pull away, they feel the pull from the advantaged side to approach the goal. So the person eventually reaches their equilibrium point. So the equilibrium point ko, ito po yung nasa gitna. An example of approach avoidance conflict: your boss recently approached you and offered you a promotion. How exciting! The new position comes with a $10,000 raise and a new title. However, you also learned that you will be required to work an additional 10 hours per week and travel out of town 1 weekend per month. Now, you have a conflict going on in your mind. You aren't sure what to do. There are both advantages and disadvantages involved in this single goal. You start thinking about the disadvantages and avoid making the decision. You go back and forth until you meet your equilibrium point and make a final decision. The third type of conflict is avoidance conflict. Avoidance is a common type of conflict where one must choose between two choices, each of which is undesirable. So I will be reading a situation as an example to better understand this type of conflict. For example, Laura had been relatively healthy her entire life. Unfortunately, even with the state of modern health, she knew that at the age of 65, she might start to develop some medical problems. So, Laura went to her primary care physician and asked for a complete physical examination. Sitting in the doctor's office after the exam, Laura could sense that something was wrong. Her doctor informed her that he detected a lump in her breast. Although he was going to conduct a biopsy to make sure, he was concerned that she might have breast cancer. Given her family history, Laura was concerned that she might have breast cancer too. She knew that whatever choices she'd be given would be undesirable. However, she would have to make a choice regardless. So Laura was facing what is known as an avoidance conflict, whereby an individual wants to avoid making a decision because the alternatives are objectionable. So after Laura's doctor received her biopsy results, he presented her with two possible courses of action. They could try to reduce the tumors using chemotherapy, or they could perform a double mastectomy and possibly avoid chemotherapy altogether. Neither decision offered a sure cure, and neither approach was going to be easy. Whether Laura chooses surgery or chemotherapy, she will experience pain. She knows that she has to make a decision, but is facing a conflict because both options have significantly negative consequences. So there are elements of avoidance. For example, avoidance may allow an individual to, first, wait and see if he or she will have better options in the future. Second, carefully consider a decision. Third, consult the wisdom of others. And the fourth one, conduct additional research. So in the case of Laura, may dalawang negative consequences. Neither maganda, kaya pwedeng pumasok po dito yung elements of avoidance. Whereas, ito po yung pwede niyang maging decision. Maghintay siya para magkaroon ng mas magandang option sa future, para magkaroon siya ng mas magandang desisyon, magkonsulta sa iba, or mag-conduct ng ibang research or additional information.